and call the meeting to order. Dr. Lowry, if you want to start the recording, that would be great.
I have done so.
Okay, and it is Thursday, September 17th, and I'll call the meeting to order. And if everybody would just, I think just since we're on Zoom, we have generally introduced ourselves. So I'll start. Nikki Ogburn, Chair of the Regional Board from Henrico County. Ms. Hall, you want to go next during the order that I have, at least?
I've set it so all you have to do is hit unmute and you should be okay. There you go.
Yes, I'm Harwood Hall, board member, King and Queen County.
There's Mr. Pritchard.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, good morning. Ken Pritchard, school board member for Petersburg City Public Schools.
Good morning. Ms. Barber, you want to identify yourself?
Yes.
Yes, Sarah Barber, New Kent County School Board.
I'm going to stop the share so that we can see everybody, and that might make this a little bit easier.
Yeah, Dr. Joppy, go ahead.
Hey, good morning. I'm Delphine Joppy, Superintendent in Charles City County Public Schools.
Is Dr. Cashwell here?
Not yet.
Dr. Carter is in here, but she may be in and out.
She's
She's feeding the birds.
see that.
Okay, we haven't heard from Wendy or David, or keep going.
If the staff from the school could please identify themselves, just roll on through it.
Good morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
Bill Barnes. I'm substituting for Lisa Pennycuff.
There we go.
Okay.
Good morning. I'm David Bortz, Chief Technology Officer, Maggie Walker Governor School.
Wendy Ellis, Associate Director, Maggie Walker.
Megan
morning.
Perez, Deputy Clerk.
Max Smith, Assistant Director. Bob Lowry, Director.
Barbara
Wendy-
Marshall, Board Clerk.
Wendy DeGroat, Faculty Liaison to the Board and Librarian.
We have a couple more. We have Dr. Asher, I know is in, and so Dr. Asher, you can just, I know you're not on video, but feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Manisha Asher. I'm a parent. My daughter is in the senior year now, and I'm just logging in to see what's going on. So many dynamic changes going on around us. So good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Is that everyone? I don't think, Mr. Pritchard, we'll just, you're still muted, but you said good morning, but I don't think you identified where you are from. For anybody who doesn't know, they've been living under a rock, but go ahead.
Yes, Petersburg City Public Schools, Petersburg School Board.
And then I think we also have Colleen Williams. So if you'll introduce yourself, I think that's everybody.
Hi, I'm Colleen Williams. I have two students, a sophomore and a senior out of Goochland.
Okay, and just for everybody's, thank you everybody, and just for everybody's knowledge, this is an executive board meeting. This is not the full board for our listening audience or our two visitors. And generally, I think, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since we've had an executive board meeting. We have not generally, have we done the moment of silence and pledge of allegiance? Somebody refresh my memory.
We have not, but we certainly could if you wanted to do so. It is on the agenda, or we can just straight on to the
honestly, I think it is so difficult for everybody in this format to do. We all sort of jumble over each other. We'll just go to the approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Barber. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Hall?
Mhm.
All right, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. The agenda is approved. Ms. Marshall, do we need to do a roll call for that?
No. I'd like a roll call in the minutes, though.
Okay. And the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Dr. Lowry, if you could share the screen that shows the minutes that we are approving, that would
Yes,
be great.
ma'am.
Thank you very much. And this is the minutes from the regular meeting of the regional board on August 20th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Pritchett. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Barber. And Ms. Marshall, if you'll do the roll call.
Ms. Ogburn,
Aye.
Ms. Hall,
Aye.
Ms. Barber,
Aye.
and Mr. Pritchett.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carried.
Thank you. Next on the agenda would normally be recognitions, but we are not going to do that this morning, and we'll turn it over to Dr. Lowry for the director's report.
Next item on the agenda is public comments. Ms.
Oh, I'm
Marshall,
sorry.
did we have, it's okay. Did we have anybody sign up for public comment, Ms. Marshall?
We did not.
Okay, thank you. All right, Dr. Lowry, your turn.
Sure, I've got a few verbal updates here and I've summarized them on the screen, but basically just kind of wanted to give everybody an update on what we did over the summer and then where we are right now in terms of the opening of the school. So the summer, as I'm sure was the same for everybody, was full of a lot of uncertainty as we weren't sure what our fate would be for the opening of school. So a lot of the time was spent preparing for the possibility of having students on campus. We did apply, excuse me, we did apply and did receive money as part of the CARES Act to be able to purchase some additional protective gear, as well as distance learning licenses and supplies, mobile hotspots, funding for additional staff development, to be able to prepare for delivering a virtual instruction if that was the case, which is what it turned out to be. We are very proud that we are able to offer what we call the Dragon Academy, which allows for teachers who are working from campus to be able to bring their school-age children to campus and be in a supervised area where they can do their schoolwork. And that's allowing our teachers to be able to do their work. And we've got anywhere between 8 to 13 kids or so in there on any given day. And we've hired someone who helps facilitate their online homework. So they're actually down in room 153, the board room. And each one of them's got their headphones on and their own little screen, and they're working on whatever their district school is sending to them. So we were really happy to have that CARES money to be able to provide that. We did do a virtual college boot camp and a virtual Dragon boot camp. The college boot camp helps our seniors prepare applications for colleges, and the Dragon boot camp helps our kids that we identify as maybe needing just a little bit of extra support to get ready for Maggie Walker, and we did both of those virtually as well. Those are not new programs. We are also pretty happy that we were able to pull off an in-person freshman orientation. We had about 175 students participate, and what we did is we broke them into two groups, an afternoon session and a morning session, and then we broke those groups into 4 groups so that at any given time, we never had more than a handful of kids together and a handful of kids in the auditorium, but we were able to make sure that their technology was up to speed, that they were able to get onto their accounts, they were able to pick up all of their materials, supplies, textbooks, and whatnot to prepare for some online virtual learning, which is where we are now. Professional development was held on campus in person for teachers, largely focused on the online platform, how to use Zoom, how to use some of the other online platforms that we're using to deliver instruction. And then Barbara Marshall also worked on the ADP Workforce Now carrier connections. So we were able to do all of the benefit enrollments online through ADP and not have a lot of physical contact. So we've managed to really reduce any type of contact with folks. Anyone that's coming in is certainly screened. I'd say about maybe 30% of the staff is working from campus, and the other 70% is working from home through their own technology, and it's worked so far. So school opened, and then I'll get through all this virtual stuff, and then we can have questions. School opened virtually on September 8th, and every indication that we have is that there were no major problems with the technology. A couple little minor glitches, but we've been able to address those. And as I said, about 25–30% of the staff is working on campus. So currently, students are in virtual classes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then Friday is an asynchronous day. Some teachers are doing assessments. There's extra help offered on those days. Teachers are doing office hours, being able to take care of the things to keep the kids as comfortable as we can and getting the help that they need as best we can, given the circumstances that we're dealing with. And that's kind of where we are right now with all of that. In terms of reopening, you know, for us, it's largely an issue of transportation. So we're keeping a very close eye on our partner districts and seeing how they progress towards reopening and bringing students back on campus. We are certainly optimistic that that will happen this year. I don't know if it'll happen in November or if it'll be January or when, but we certainly want to be able to get our kids back. And we've got a really good plan that we filed with the state for that eventuality, probably bringing them back, you know, partially, a certain number of days a week, reduced number of kids until it's safe to bring everybody back. And we'll also have to make accommodations for students and staff that are medically fragile as we kind of work our way through the situation. But I have to say, all things considered, I think things have gone very well. There's certainly some issues that we need to work on, but we committed to rolling with this model for at least a couple of weeks before we made any radical changes to give everybody an opportunity to sort of get into the rhythm of school before we started panicking on stuff. And I have to commend the technology trainers, what we call the tech integrators. You know, we had some teachers here that were not tech savvy 6 months ago who are now running Zoom meetings with breakout sessions and doing all the kind of technology stuff that everybody else is doing. And it was a very steep learning curve for them, but they understood that's what needed to be done. And I really want to publicly commend our tech integrators and the folks that help support our teachers, not only to learn the material that they needed to be able to do to deliver the instruction, but to also just sort of help them feel comfortable with it and sort of boost them to where they believe that they could do it. So we're certainly not perfect, but we haven't had any major glitches, and things seem to be moving forward generally okay on that. Are there any questions about the summer or the virtual opening before I get into the rest of the stuff?
Just one, Dr. Larry. Just curious, what's the feedback from parents? Are they able to manage the workload of helping students and just getting it all done?
Yeah, the number one feedback I've been receiving, and this has been very consistent, has been, I guess, what we're calling Zoom fatigue. And I think most of us have been in days like today. I've got 5 Zoom meetings, but they're scattered. There's one right now. I've got one at lunch. I have 3 this afternoon. But I'm not having to sit from 8:45 until 3 o'clock on my computer. And so I'd say the biggest concern that I'm receiving from parents right now is just Zoom fatigue, that their kids are staring at a screen for hours on end. And we're making some adjustments from the instructional side of things. You know, I've told teachers you don't need to be giving direct instruction from bell to bell. Break it up, talk for 20 minutes, give the kids 35–40 minutes off screen time, and then come back together in the end. Kind of like you would expect to see in a classroom where a teacher may be doing direct instruction for part of the class, and then the kids are working in groups and doing their thing, and then maybe they come back together at the end. We're working through that. I think there's also an internal pressure on the teachers that the reality is, you know, a lot of our classes are advanced. A lot of them are College Board AP classes or dual enrollment classes. And I think a lot of the times the teachers feel that with this system we've got in place, it's very difficult to be able to teach the entire content at the same pace that they would normally do it. And that's just the reality, but I think some of them are struggling with that. So we've got some kinks we need to work out, I think, in terms of the screen time. I don't want to pen teachers in with real strict requirements, because I think that we've got to give the teachers the flexibility to be able to operate their classes. Our homework policy is still the same, so we're trying to keep that in check. But to answer your question, by far, the most consistent concern I have from parents has been just the Zoom time, the Zoom fatigue, just being on the computer for that many hours.
Right. Well, and honestly, that's what we're hearing in Henrico too.
Yeah.
I was just curious. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's the nature of the beast. It is.
I think it is.
As we go on, teachers will become a little more innovative of, here's a group project, work on it together as a group, or here's something independent and, get off the screen for a while. But being that it's only like day 8, I know it's a work in progress. So
it is, but we're certainly responding to the feedback, and I mean, I agree with them, and part of it, honestly, in all fairness, I mean, for most of our kids, they haven't had to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and be on their game, so to speak, since March. So I think part of it is just, even if we were in person, the first week of school could be pretty exhausting for everybody. But I think this adds a whole new element to it, and that's, right. But we'll continue to monitor the feedback and do what we can with an eye towards getting kids back on campus.
Right. Anyone else have a question or comment on this part of Dr. Lowry's report?
All right, the next couple things are relatively simple. We are obviously, our outreach program is going to be a little bit different this year than it's been in the past. So I would expect most of the districts are going to be doing their information nights in some sort of a virtual fashion. So we are waiting to hear from our partners in terms of what they need from us. But normally the month of October, which is about a week and a half from now, is usually filled with the administrators and some of the other support teachers going out to the middle schools around the central region and sort of spreading the Maggie Walker gospel. But we're just kind of waiting to hear how they plan on doing that. What I suspect will happen is we'll be sending out either recorded videos for them to use or narrated PowerPoints for them to use to be able to, pass the word on to their kids. But it's going to depend on what the local districts need to do. Some of them may do something in person in a socially responsible way. Others, it's probably going to be virtual. So we're just kind of waiting to see what they need, and we'll certainly support that. I have put together a strategic plan implementation team, and we will probably have our first virtual meeting, I would imagine, next week, once we get through a couple other things, to start taking our strategic plan and implementing it. And I've included students, parents, teachers, alumni on the plan, as well as some operational folks here on campus, so that we can take the plan that was approved by the board and actually start making it work. And there's going to be a standing agenda item on our school board agenda, or executive board as the case may be, where we will provide the board updates on a monthly basis as to what we're doing and where we are with the implementation of our plan. So I just wanted to put that out there to make sure you knew that we were moving forward with the plan and had put steps in place to start to make it a reality. And then the last item I have, I think it's the last item here, is there's been a lot of turnover in the foundation office, but they have hired a new fiscal assistant. Her name is Julie Eckstein, and she is the parent of a charming sophomore that we have here at school. So we're really excited to have Julie on campus. And they have also, I believe, selected their new executive director, but they have not publicized yet. They haven't written a press release on it yet. So I'm going to hold that information for right now, but I believe that they have staffed that office with a person that is supposed to start the beginning of October. They just have not made that announcement public yet, but they did have a search committee and they did vote on it. So I believe that is in the works as well. In terms of upcoming events, just one that's the primary one I would guess I would pass on is that we are going to have a virtual back to school night next Thursday on the 24th. We are working on all the logistics of that, but essentially it's going to involve a short online PTSA meeting where the PTSA can handle their business with the voting mechanisms that they're going to put in place. And then what we're doing is we're asking each teacher to do about a 5-minute video or so of each one of their courses. And then we're going to collect all those videos, put them in a central location where parents can access it. And they can just go ahead and say, okay, I've got Dr. Lowry's world history class, click on my link, and then they can hear me talk about the class, the expectations, the assessments, how to get extra help, all the things that you would normally do on a back to school night. And then they can go to Mr. Smith's calculus class and Dr. Ellis's French class, and so on and so forth, and just roll right on through at their own leisure. And it'll be available for them, you know, even beyond the night of the PTSA. But that way we'll be able to keep everybody socially distanced and safe and still be able to get the information. And then of course the teachers will allow parents who want to email and ask questions, they'll respond to them as well. I think that's the safest way for us to do it, because under normal circumstances, our back to school night would easily have 12 to 1,300 people on campus, and we certainly can't do that. So we're just in the process of putting all the technical pieces together, but we will be running that next Thursday night. And I believe that's the extent of my updates. Just a reminder that the 21-22 division enrollment planning by policy will be due December 1st. So if districts want to change or modify or do whatever they want to do with the number of slots that they have, we would need to have that information by December 1st so we can start putting it into our budget numbers. And Madam Chair, that's the extent of my announcements and such. I certainly would field any questions that anybody has about any of it.
Okay, anyone have any questions about the rest of Dr. Lowry's report? Okay, moving on. Unfinished business. We do have one item.
Yeah, it's just a reminder, Madam Chair, of the policies that were presented in the August meeting. We obviously cannot vote on them today, but they will be on the October agenda for approval as a second read when the full board is back together. So that's just a reminder for board members that there's quite a few policies there that if they'd like to peruse them and look at Ms. Marshall's cheat sheet on what they are, that is available for them.
Okay, and I do have one item of unfinished business. Just an update, at our last meeting, we talked about the strategic plan. And during our meeting, we had a few alumni visiting as part of our meeting. And in the chat, the alumni that were there were very dissatisfied with the way the strategic plan vote went, the discussion went, et cetera. So in the chat, I offered to follow up with a phone call with them, et cetera. Ultimately, that led to a Zoom meeting with Dr. Lowry, Ms. Barber, and myself. And I want to say, what was it like? How many alums? I'm trying to remember.
There must have been about 15 or so, I would say, yeah.
Yeah. And so long and short, they asked a number of questions. They sent a list of questions in advance, which Dr. Lowry answered. And we came to a consensus of they needed some clarification on how some things work. And some of the things that they were worried about were really kind of misconceptions of how things work. And we talked about admissions policies and how each district sets their own and that kind of thing. But we sort of brought them up to date to where we are with the strategic plan. And then, as Dr. Lowry indicated a couple minutes ago, that a few of these folks will be on the strategic plan committee. He's trying to include them in the conversation as it's ongoing. And if there are changes that need to be made or updates to the strategic plan, we can do that. We reminded them that the strategic plan is basically a living, breathing document. You adjust it as you need to. And so I think at the end of the call, they were in a better place as far as understanding the way things work and the fact that, you know, equity, diversity, having equity of opportunity for all of our students before they come to Maggie Walker is a goal we all share. And I don't think they really understood before this call just how much is being done. So at the end of the day, I think we ended in a good place and basically we'll follow up with the group, but some of them are included on the strategic plan committee. So Dr. Lowry, if you want to fill in any blanks.
No, I think you covered it real well. We do have 2 alumni on our implementation team to keep that line of communication open. I think that we left the meeting feeling that we were all on the same side and that we were working together. There's certainly some areas that are still kind of sticking points, but I think that part of it was really based on misconceptions, and I think that we made some really good progress. And I think things are going to be very positive. They want to help. They're very interested in being a part of the school, and we're very interested in having them be partners with us. So I think it was a very productive meeting.
Right. I thought so as well. Anyone else have an item of unfinished business?
I just have a question. I had to leave early from that meeting. I did read the report that you sent from the article from the newspaper, but just have a question. Are the school districts that issues with diversity, are you all discussing it with the citizens and parents about how you plan to change? I mean, because a lot of us, our smaller districts, seem like we are being thrown under the bus because of what is happening with the larger districts.
Right. I'll start. I can tell you what Henrico is doing. Just last week, I met with our gifted coordinator and various other members of our staff in the Zoom meeting to discuss our current practices for our admissions process, acceptance, etc. The staff has developed several scenarios because honestly, we know or assume that something is coming from the state that will dictate or script in some way our admissions policies. And so trying to get ahead of the game, I asked our staff to examine, what do we do now? What are possibilities of adjustments? Do we need to make them, et cetera? And so when I met with them, they've sort of come up with 3 scenarios. One is currently what we do, which is accept 1 student per middle school and then a common pool for the rest of the applicants. And so what they've done is reviewed the last few years of enrollment, et cetera. But I do know that Chesterfield has had some conversations lately about changing their admissions protocols. And the real issue is there is a movement afoot at the state level, and Dr. Lowry can expand on this, I'm sure, because he's on all of those calls. There's a movement afoot at the state level it kind of runs the gamut. There are some members of the General Assembly who want to defund and do away with governor schools. Oh, wow. There are members of the General Assembly who say we should keep it as it is. And there's everything in between. But Secretary Carney has, and I don't think I'm misstating this from what I've read, on a mission to bring more equity and diversity to governor schools. And so as Dr. Lowry can expand on the TJ part, the article I sent you about TJ and several other things that I've sent you were basically to inform you about what's going on. TJ is sort of leading the battle. And and basically there's a lot of focus on TJ. And they are up in arms over this, and they are really leading the way to let their process work the way they want it to work without somebody dictating to them what they do. And so it's basically started a conversation across the state, I think, with all the governor's schools. Look at your admissions policies. Is there anything there that prevents or puts walls and roadblocks in front of having a more diverse population? And so the Secretary Carney, it looks like, is on, as Mr. Barlow said at our last meeting, the quota, having quotas based on the diversity of your district. And one of the things that I have brought to the attention of our staff is exactly your question, Ken. We've got some small school districts who put 5 or fewer, and some of them have 1 or 2. And if we put in a quota, how does the school system that sends 3 kids meet that quota?
Right.
But also the part that I know it comes down to something very basic. One of the things that Secretary Corney is suggesting with quotas would require, there's no other way to do it, require identification of students by ethnicity or any kind of cultural identity or socioeconomic identity. And as I know at Henrico, we have a blind admissions policy. We don't, and it's actually against the law to identify students by their race, culture, or socioeconomic status. So that's the rub. How do you set quotas without identifying students racially, ethnically, anyway, that you could identify them? So that's the, when you get right down to it, a big part of the conflict.
Right.
But at this moment in time, it is, I've gotten our legal team to look into it. It's illegal to identify students by their race. So how do we set up quotas to meet let's just start with racial identification without, identifying them in a way that's illegal. So, but there's also a movement for socioeconomic identifications and having a diverse pool of, and for one of the big things at TJ is a number of affluent families pay for, test prep and tutors and all kinds of mechanisms for preparing their kids for the application process so that they can get in. And affluent families can afford that. And families who are, experiencing poverty at any level can't afford to do that test prep. So what they're finding is that there's this diversity of socioeconomic areas that are not represented at TJ. And so they're really attacking that problem. How can we open this process up to kids who can't afford all that test prep and all the tutors and all that kind of stuff? So that's why the article I sent you yesterday from Dr. Cashwell is the superintendent of Fairfax has proposed that they do away with the test, and that will level the playing field. And there won't be any more test prep. But the superintendent of Fairfax has also recommended to their board that for TJ, they take the pool of kids who qualify and then do a lottery from there. And of course, that is going to be extraordinarily controversial.
Right.
So that's a very long explanation of what's going on, but
Thank you, though. Great information. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, no problem. And honestly, I think we really, as a group, we really need to follow this because it is going to, at some point in time, it is going to affect us. So I can tell you in Henrico, like I said, we are reviewing we're just at the point of the staff reviewing what we do, coming up with proposals of what we could do to make things more equitable. They're looking at, for example, currently we have one spot per middle school that is reserved, and then the rest of it is a general pool, and we do it based on our rubric of criteria. But it's not a lottery. Okay. And so they looked at possibly, what would be the effects of having 2 spots per middle school. And that way you have equity across the county, because the county is so large that if you only have 1 spot per middle school, after that, you're looking at, upwards of 20 spots in a year. That's that common pool, and having IB programs and things like that. And we now have a gifted center at the middle school level. We're finding that a goodly number of those open spots come from those programs. And so again, they might be clustered in one area of the county or another based on the program. So they're looking at all of that. And so we're obviously at the very beginning, but, you know, I just know that the last time we changed our policy for admissions to Maggie Walker, it was like World War III.
Okay.
And so it'll be something, if we do it, it will be done very carefully. And we may actually try to figure out a way to fund more spots to sort of soften the blow to those people who feel like they're being excluded. You know, and because we do have kids who are extraordinarily talented that would normally under the current system be accepted, that might not be if we have reserved spots for every middle school. And that's not going to go over well.
Right.
You know.
Mr. Pritchard, I think one thing I can say that would help alleviate some of the fears that you might have is that two things. First off, Fairfax County, TJ is a very different school than us. And one of the main fundamental differences is that they are a Fairfax County public school. They are actually part of Fairfax County. So the Fairfax County School Board has complete control over the admissions practices for that school. They offer slots to surrounding counties, but they're not represented the way we do a regional school board. So for Fairfax County to change their policies, that's going to affect everybody. Whereas we have a regional school board, there are 12 different admission practices, and that's part of our charter. So that's not going to change. What I would tell you is that it appears to me that what the state is mostly interested in, at least on the surface, is an outcome number. And if the larger districts, such as Richmond, Chesterfield, and Henrico, make changes to improve the diversity in their applicants and their accepted students, what will affect them, the smaller districts, it'll have no effect, and you'll be able to continue doing what you're doing. And you do it well. Petersburg does it very well, because our overall number is going to move enough that where you're not going to have to break it down and require each individual district to do something that's unusual. Because for districts that only send us 2 or 3 kids a year, you know, and in some cases only have 2 applications for those 2 positions, you know, a very small district, it would be very difficult to try to meet these requirements that are going on. And then the other piece I would add is all of this is done with the greatest of intentions, and I think that it is good work and it's the right work. But at the end of the day, anything that the state is doing is political, and it is going to have to run through the General Assembly, and it's going to have to go through subcommittees and committees, and, you know, the one house go to the other house, get signed by the governor. And what Secretary Carney and the governor may initially want may not be what comes out of the other end of the sausage maker. So and that's one of the reasons why I've kind of held back. The Thomas Jefferson parents are very upset and very active, and they are mobilizing, because what Fairfax is recommending is a radical departure from what they've been doing. What we're looking at is a much more subtle change. And I think that the districts, you know, the ones who I've talked to, Henrico, Richmond, Chesterfield, they are doing what they're doing in a way that's going to benefit all of us. So I'm not hitting the panic button, I guess, as much as Thomas Jefferson is right now. But I do think that the net result is going to be a more diverse Maggie Walker. I think it's going to be a more inclusive Maggie Walker. It's going to not lower our standards at all. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people seem to latch on to, is this very false belief that somehow changing our admissions practices is going to lower our standards. We have documented data that Dr. Ellis has done that shows the correlation of success versus that composite score. And it stretches all the way down into the 70s, that a student who has a 75 on our composite admission score has excellent success rates. And we measure success by grade point average and graduation. You're talking about kids graduating from Maggie Walker with a very rigorous curriculum with above a 3.5, 3.6, 3.7. We're not going to be lowering our standards at all. We may have to adjust some of the things that we do to help some of the kids who haven't had the preparation that others have had to meet the standards, but that's well within, we're teachers, that's what we do. I mean, that's well within our abilities, and I'm looking forward to the challenge. I think that this is going to be good. I do wish, as Ms. Ogburn said, I do wish that there was a little more transparency, and I do wish there was a little more parental involvement and helping them understand what we're doing, because I think a lot of the fears are based on misconceptions, and when we're not transparent, those misconceptions can grow into really big problems. So I've been very open with any parent that's contacted me and communicated to me about what's happening. And it's my hope that everybody else, as they go through this process, does the same, because that's going to make us a much stronger school. We're going to come out on the other side of this an even stronger school than we are right now. I really do believe that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you both for that.
All right. Any other questions or comments on that topic? And as we go forward, I'll just tell you, anything that we learn, we will share, obviously. If you have any contacts or communication with your legislators, this might be a good conversation to have. Just, you know, we are working on this. We are dedicated to a diverse school. And I think, as Dr. Lowry said, you know, he's often on calls with the other governor school directors. And so he'll keep us up to date on as this progresses.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Madam Chair, the next item are the consent items. There are 4 of them. 3 of them are pretty standard personnel. We do not have any personnel changes for this month. The revenue transaction register and budget obligations are vetted by the Finance Committee, and these are the ones through July. The donation report, I don't believe we've had any donations, but it's there. The one thing that I will draw attention to is we got a rebate from our insurance because we managed to stay healthier last year than I guess they anticipated. And so that money goes into our operating budget, but we have to put it in as miscellaneous revenue because it's not something that we budgeted for back in March. And employees who pay health premiums will be eligible for a portion of the rebate. And since we pay subsidize the health premiums, we get the remaining amount. So any employee that pays health premiums for our insurance will get a piece of that rebate back proportionally based upon what they've paid in. And then the school will retain the rest. And what we do is we put it into the account for our health care so that next year when we're negotiating our contract, we'll have a little bit of cash to be able to hopefully keep the cost to the faculty and the staff as low as possible by just using the money that we get back from this year into next year's pot. So that item is one of the consent items that needs to be approved, and all 4 of these items can be voted on as a block.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the consent items?
I move we approve the consent item.
Thank you, Ms. Barber. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Pritchard. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The consent items are approved. Ms. Marshall, do you need a roll call for that?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right, Dr. Lauer, we have an action item of anti-bullying proclamation.
We do. We have one action item, and October is designated as Anti-Bullying Month. And from the VSBA, we have taken a resolution that they have provided. And basically, to summarize it, it states our intent as a learning community to stamp out bullying wherever we can, and that we don't tolerate it, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that all of our kids feel welcomed and inclusive at school. And we've got policies in our policy manual as well that address bullying very specifically. So this is just a proclamation that we are asking everyone to get behind to make our position very clear when it comes to school bullying.
Okay, thank you. And we have no policy items for first read. Dr. Lowry, you have some information for us.
Ma'am, we do need to vote on the anti-bullying proclamation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Absolutely. Do I have a motion to approve the anti-bullying proclamation?
I move we approve the anti-bullying proclamation.
Thank you, Ms. Barber. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. The proclamation is approved. Ms. Marshall, do we need a roll call for that?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I only have 4 really quick items for information. One is that even though we're in a virtual environment, colleges are virtually visiting schools, and we have quite a list of colleges that are coming virtually, and you can see them there as I kind of scroll through them. And what we do is we set up Zoom meetings for the students who want to talk to the representatives of these colleges, and you can see that they're all during basically the lunchtime slots there. But this is what we have so far, just really just this week, we're already into it. So everything from University of Richmond all the way down to South Carolina, everything in between. We are still providing those opportunities for our kids to be able to interact with college representatives. We already spoke about back to school night on the 24th. We do have some new dragons that have joined us. Ms. Kim Forkner is a senior class counselor, and she is now part of the dragon community. And we have Ms. Nikita Lee is a social studies teacher. She is now part of our community as well. Ms. Suzanne Moore-Wynn is one of our science teachers now. She's teaching chemistry. She's part of our community. And then also Mr. Rocky, who is coming to us from Blacksburg, is also teaching science. So we did bring on some new folks to join us, and all indications are that they have settled in quite nicely and are doing very, very well. I wish that we had them on campus because it's difficult to get to know them through Zoom, but we did have one opportunity to meet and greet in sort of a socially responsible way, and they are really neat people, and we're glad to have them on board. And then one last little piece, we had a senior that participated in the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals essay contest and placed 3rd place. Justin Goldman, Tim right here. And it was nice to see some of our folks being recognized for stuff that they do outside of school. So that's pretty good. And that's the extent of the information. I do not believe that we have any new business. Madam Chair, that concludes my part of the meeting.
Okay, thank you so much. I do have just one quick, I'll put it under announcements. I wanted to thank Dr. Lowry for, like I said, we did that Zoom call with the students, and I just want to, I did this through email, but I'm going to do it officially as well. The way you are handling all that is coming your way with the strategic plan input, the beginning of virtual school, and the leadership, I think things are going great. The feedback from parents is so positive that I've heard. But if you could extend our appreciation to the staff. This
Yes,
is a difficult and unusual time, and I think they've certainly risen to the challenge. But I wanted just to thank you for all of that. It is.
Well, I would respond by paraphrasing a story once where a young kid asked his grandfather, who's fought in World War II, if he was a hero, and he said, "Well, no, son, I wasn't a hero, but I served in a company of heroes." And that's how I feel is we have an amazing team that has done just above and beyond what I would ever expect anybody to do to make this work. And we're not perfect, but from every one of us has a role to play, and the administrators, the teachers, our media specialist, whose picture is grinning at us in her spot down there. Now she's live and waving. Have just done a remarkable job. Mr. Bortz, our technology chief, every day it seems like we bring him an impossible task and then sort of sit back and see what he can do. And he's managed to be able to rise up to where, we don't have any kids with technology or connectivity problems. And also, though, I have to deflect a lot of this praise directly on the families and the students. And I'll just share one story, and I won't use any name, or I won't use the county, but I'll say a student who lives in a very rural part of a county that simply doesn't have internet access. There is no broadband, there is no cell tower. I actually Google Earthed his place to try to figure out where he was, and he's quite literally on a farm, and his family worked it out to where he was able to go to a local business and use their Wi-Fi during the day. So everybody has stepped up and dealt with an almost unplayable hand. And, you know, I'm so blessed not only to have the folks that I'm working with, but the environment that I'm working in with the 912. You know, and I just put this out there for no other reason than to say it. I can't imagine what our elementary teachers are doing out in the region right now. It's just absolutely superhuman. So hopefully we can stay on track and get ourselves in a position where we can get our kids back on track. You know, we often hear people talking about the new normal, and I don't accept that, because this is not normal, and it should not be normal, and it will not be normal. It's just where we are right now. But we're going to get back to where we can see each other and hug each other and keep each other going. And I just thank everybody for their support, including the school board, superintendents. Everybody's been wonderful. We're all going to get through this together. But thank you for your kind words.
Absolutely, you bet. Greatly deserved. Anyone have anything else before we adjourn?
I just have a question. I just want to know, Dr. Lowry, if I could speak to him after the meeting.
Yes, sir.
If you could give me a call.
Yep.
Do you have his number?
Ms. Marshall, do we have a direct phone number? I don't want to put that out there to the public.
I can send it to you.
Okay, Mr. Pritchett, I'll call you as soon as we're done.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Okay, our next meeting will be on October 15th, and if I am not mistaken, that is a full board meeting. Am I correct, Ms. Marshall?
Yes.
Hearing nothing else, I'll declare the meeting adjourned and see everybody on October 15th.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.